At the Whispering Pines Wildlife Sanctuary, located in the rugged, sun-baked landscapes of northern Arizona, miracles don't just happen. They're made. When two tiny lion cubs, tragically abandoned by their injured mother, faced certain swift death, their only desperate hope came from the most unlikely of saviors. Willow, a bobcat, her own heart still heavy with grief from a lost litter. Against all staggering odds, an unbreakable bond formed, crossing species lines, utterly defying nature, and changing everything the sanctuary thought they knew about family. But 2 agonizing years later, as the cubs grew into powerful, majestic lions, everyone held their breath. Could the tender bond forged in desperate need possibly survive the raw, undeniable instincts of the wild? This is a story of remarkable courage, unexpected kinship, and a reunion so astonishing, so profoundly moving, it simply must be seen to be believed. Before we dive into this unforgettable journey, please hit that like button. Make sure you're subscribed if you haven't already, and definitely ring that notification bell so you won't miss any new, inspiring stories from the sanctuary. The first fragile light of dawn crept across the dusty plains of the Whispering Pines Wildlife Sanctuary. Dew clung stubbornly to the sparse vegetation surrounding the expansive grounds, where the soft growls, chirps, and calls of rescued animals welcomed the new day. For Dr. Evelyn Reed, the sanctuary's devoted founder and lead veterinarian, mornings like these usually brought a fleeting sense of peace, a quiet moment of calm before the demanding day inevitably began. But this particular morning in late March was different. Evelyn's weathered hands gripped her coffee mug tightly as she stared through the observation window at Savannah, a 6-year-old African lioness rescued just 18 months earlier from poachers near the Arizona-Mexico border. The majestic feline had given birth to 2 tiny cubs only 3 days ago, a miracle in itself, considering the extensive, brutal injuries she'd sustained from a poacher's trap before quick-thinking Border Patrol agents discovered her. "Any change?" asked Ben Carter, the sanctuary's senior animal keeper. His silver-streaked black hair was pulled back in a ponytail, and deep lines etched his face from decades working tirelessly in wildlife rehabilitation. Evelyn shook her head slowly, her 63-year-old frame sagging slightly under the immense weight of her concern. "Nothing. She's completely ignoring them." Inside the enclosure, Savannah lounged in the far corner, her golden eyes half closed, seemingly utterly oblivious to the 2 tiny forms huddled together in the clean straw bedding Evelyn and her team had so carefully prepared for the birthing. The cubs, 1 male, 1 female, were alarmingly still. Their once pitiful mewing had now faded to only occasional, weak whimpers. "It's been 3 days, Ben," Evelyn said, running a hand through her own silver-streaked auburn hair, a gesture of deep anxiety. "I've seen reluctant mothers before, but this is—" She trailed off, watching in agonizing silence as Savannah stretched, indifferent, uncaring. Ben nodded gravely, his Native American heritage giving him a particular, deep reverence for the profound relationship between mother and child, even in the animal kingdom. The trauma she endured, it might have damaged more than just her body. "I wanted to give her every possible chance," Evelyn said, her voice heavy with regret. "But we can't wait any longer. Those cubs simply won't survive another day without immediate intervention." Ben placed a strong, reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You made the right call, giving her time. Now, we make the right call saving those cubs." Within the hour, the sanctuary's dedicated rescue team carefully, gently extracted the weakened lion cubs. Savannah watched from her corner, showing neither aggression nor interest. A disturbing, heart-wrenching apathy that somehow broke Evelyn's heart more profoundly than any display of aggression ever could have. The sanctuary's medical building became a whirlwind of urgent activity as Evelyn and her team worked frantically to stabilize the severely dehydrated cubs. Dr. Chloe Davis, the sanctuary's newest veterinarian at 32, her face etched with deep concentration, carefully inserted tiny IV lines while Evelyn rapidly prepared a specialized, nutrient-rich formula. Their body temperatures are dangerously low, Chloe reported, her delicate hands working with practiced, urgent precision despite the immense pressure. The little male is in worse shape. Evelyn nodded grimly, feeling the crushing weight of her 40 years of wildlife veterinary experience pressing down on her. Let's get them warmed up slowly. Heat pads at 101 degrees Fahrenheit. As the agonizing day progressed, the team took shifts, tirelessly bottle-feeding the tiny cubs every 2 hours. By nightfall, both showed marginal, fragile improvement, though Evelyn knew, with a sickening certainty, that they were far from out of danger yet. "What are we calling them?" asked Olivia Chen, a 28-year-old intern with bright eyes and boundless enthusiasm, a stark contrast to the sobering life-and-death situation. Evelyn hadn't even considered names yet. A grim defense mechanism from years of losing animals, despite her absolute best efforts. "Let's focus on just keeping them alive first," she said gently, trying to shield the young intern from the raw fear she felt. "They need more than just food and warmth," Ben said as he entered the room for the night shift, his voice low and gravely, filled with ancient wisdom. "Cubs need socialization, grooming, stimulation." "I know," Evelyn sighed, the sound a mix of exhaustion and despair. "Bottle raising is a last resort. Without proper maternal care." The unspoken, devastating reality hung heavy in the air. Hand-raised big cats often developed severe behavioral issues, making rehabilitation to the wild utterly impossible and even sanctuary life challenging, heartbreakingly difficult. "What about a surrogate?" Chloe suggested tentatively, adjusting the tiny female cub's position to help her digest the formula. Evelyn raised an eyebrow, a flicker of surprise crossing her face. "We don't have any other lactating lions. Not necessarily a lion," Chloe continued, her eyes brightening with a spark of desperate hope. "I read about cross-species fostering at the Johannesburg Wildlife Center. Sometimes the maternal instinct, it transcends species." Ben's interest was instantly piqued. "We have Willow." A long, heavy silence followed, as Evelyn slowly considered the utterly improbable suggestion. Willow was an 8-year-old bobcat who had arrived at the sanctuary just 2 months earlier after being struck by a vehicle on Highway 89. Her injuries had healed well, miraculously, but the trauma seemed to have left her unusually docile, unnaturally calm for a bobcat. More significantly, a veterinary examination upon her arrival had revealed undeniable evidence of a very recent pregnancy. Though, heartbreakingly, no kittens were found near the accident site. "A bobcat raising lion cubs?" Evelyn finally said, the skepticism thick in her tone, almost choking her. The size difference alone. Indigenous cultures have stories of wolves raising human children, bears adopting fawns, Ben said, his voice taking on the rhythmic, mesmerizing quality it often did when he shared the deep wisdom of his Navajo ancestors. "Nature finds a way, Evelyn, when compassion opens the door." Evelyn looked at the tiny cubs, their golden fur still patchy and their eyes firmly closed. Vulnerable, utterly dependent. They were fighting for every single breath. What other choice did they possibly have? "It's worth a try," she conceded, the words feeling both terrifying and necessary. But we'll need to proceed with extreme, absolute caution. The next morning brought a flurry of urgent preparations. Willow's enclosure, a spacious area meticulously designed to accommodate her recovery, was quickly modified to create a safe, secure space for potential fostering. The team constructed a small den area with narrow access that would allow the bobcat to enter, but would be sturdy and secure enough to protect the cubs if Willow, terrifyingly, rejected them. We'll need to monitor them constantly, Evelyn instructed as she checked the cubs' vital signs, her heart pounding. Their condition had stabilized overnight, thankfully, but they remained dangerously weak, frail. At the first sign of aggression, we pull them out. Immediately. Ben nodded, his face set with determination, setting up surveillance cameras that would allow them to observe the delicate interaction without disruptive human presence. Chloe prepared a mild sedative for Willow, just enough to keep her calm during the initial, critical introduction without, they prayed, compromising her essential instincts. Do you really think this could work? She asked Evelyn, uncertainty heavily clouding her features, mirroring Evelyn's own private fears. I've been doing this work for 40 years, Chloe, Evelyn replied, drawing the medication into a syringe, her hands steady despite the tremor in her gut. And nature still surprises me, every single day. With Willow lightly sedated, her movements slow but not impaired, Evelyn and Ben carefully placed the lion cubs in the prepared den. The tiny creatures huddled together, their fragile golden forms dwarfed by even the modest space. Now, we wait, Evelyn said, her voice barely a whisper. As they retreated to the observation room, the tension in the air palpable. For 3 agonizing hours, Willow remained in her favorite corner of the enclosure, occasionally glancing toward the new addition with mild curiosity, but making no move to investigate. The cubs, weak as they were, occasionally released pitiful, high-pitched mews that echoed, heartbreakingly, through the monitoring speakers. Maybe we should try something else, Chloe suggested softly, as afternoon crept relentlessly toward evening, the silence stretching between them. Give her time, Ben advised, his gaze fixed on the monitors. The sedative is still wearing off. She needs to make this choice on her own. As if hearing his words, Willow finally stood, stretched languidly, and began a cautious, deliberate approach toward the den. The team held their collective breath, their hearts pounding in unison, as the bobcat's compact form moved with slow, measured intent. Willow paused at the entrance, her nose twitching frantically as she detected the unfamiliar scent. She let out a low, rumbling growl that made Evelyn's hand instinctively hover over the emergency response button, a silent prayer on her lips. Wait, Ben whispered urgently, his eyes wide. The bobcat lowered her head, peering intensely into the den. The female cub emitted a weak, desperate cry, a sound that seemed to trigger something primal, something deep within Willow. Her posture shifted subtly, miraculously. Her ears perked forward instead of flattening in aggression. With careful, deliberate movements, Willow entered the den. Oh my God. Chloe breathed, her eyes wide with astonishment as they all watched the monitors spellbound. Inside the den, Willow circled the cubs once, then again, her movements slow, assessing. Then she lowered herself carefully beside them. For a long, suspended moment, she simply lay there, her spotted coat a stark contrast to the tawny, undeveloped fur of the lion cubs. Then, to the utter tear-inducing astonishment of the watching humans, she began to groom the male cub with gentle, rhythmic licks. Evelyn felt tears spring to her eyes, blurring her vision. In 40 years of wildlife work, she had witnessed countless wonders, countless moments of nature's fierce beauty. But this moment, this utterly unlikely connection, struck her with its raw, breathtaking power. "Ben," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. "You were right." The burly man simply nodded, his own eyes suspiciously moist, unable to speak. Over the next precious days, Willow's maternal instincts bloomed fully, fiercely. She groomed the cubs diligently, tirelessly, stimulating their circulation and keeping them meticulously clean. She curled around them at night, her small body heat providing the warmth they desperately, critically needed. Most surprisingly, most miraculously of all, she actually began to nurse them. Though Evelyn ensured the cubs still received essential supplemental bottle feedings to compensate for the difference in milk composition and volume. "We should name them now," Olivia suggested, a week later, her face glowing with hope as they all watched the cubs, noticeably stronger, tumbling playfully over Willow's incredibly patient form. Evelyn, who had scarcely left the sanctuary in the past 10 days, her exhaustion forgotten in the face of this miracle, found herself actually smiling. A genuine, deep smile. "You're right. They've earned their names." After some discussion, they settled on Hunter for the male cub, a nod to his species, and Luna for the female, a name that seemed to capture her gentle spirit. "And they've earned their place in the record books, too," Chloe added, lowering her phone, her voice filled with excitement. "I've been consulting with colleagues across the country. No one, anywhere, has documented a successful cross-fostering between a bobcat and lion cubs before." "Let's not get ahead of ourselves," Evelyn cautioned, though her heart swelled with pride and cautious optimism. "They're still fragile. We have a long, challenging road ahead." But as the weeks turned into months, Hunter and Luna not only survived, but thrived magnificently under Willow's attentive, unusual care. The bobcat seemed to instinctively adapt her parenting to accommodate her adoptive offspring's rapidly larger size and drastically different developmental pace. When they grew too large for her to groom effectively, she focused on their faces and ears, the most accessible parts. When they became too heavy for her to move by the scruff, she nudged and guided them with her paws instead. Indeed, by the cubs' 4th month, they had dramatically outgrown their foster mother in size. Yet the profound, unexpected bond between them remained utterly undiminished. Willow would play with them in the expanded enclosure the sanctuary had carefully prepared, even attempting to teach them stalking techniques, despite the young lion's far less stealthy, more direct approach to hunting. The incredible story of the bobcat mother and her lion cubs spread like wildfire. First locally through astonished visitors to the sanctuary, then regionally as a Phoenix news station did an emotional feature, and finally nationally when a major nature documentary series began filming their unique, heartwarming family. "Doesn't all the attention worry you?" asked Dr. Alan Kim, a renowned big cat specialist who had traveled from the University of Texas specifically to observe the unusual family dynamic. He and Evelyn stood watching as Willow patiently demonstrated pouncing techniques to the now gangly, awkward adolescent cubs. "Of course it does," Evelyn admitted, the worry a constant ache in her chest. "But we desperately need the funding the publicity brings, and there's an undeniable educational value to their story." Dr. Kim nodded thoughtfully, his gaze fixed on the playing cats. "The real question is, what happens next? They're developing well physically, remarkably so. But what about their species-specific behaviors? They're learning to hunt like bobcats, not lions. It was a deeply concerning question that had kept Evelyn awake many, many nights. Lions were highly social cats with complex pride behaviors. Bobcats were solitary, territorial. How, she agonized, would this unusual upbringing truly affect Hunter and Luna's long-term development? We're supplementing with videos of natural lion behavior, Evelyn explained, outlining their cautious strategy. And we plan to introduce them to our other lions at a safe, controlled distance once they're older. It's fascinating work, Dr. Kim admitted, shaking his head in wonder. But incredibly challenging. They can never be released, can they? No, Evelyn agreed, a touch of profound sadness in her voice. But they have a home here, for life. As Hunter and Luna approached their first birthday, the challenging, inevitable time came to transition them away from Willow. The Bobcat had been a truly remarkable mother, beyond all expectation. But the cubs, no longer cubs at all, but rapidly growing adolescent lions, needed space to develop their own identities, their own lion nature. The separation process was gradual, heartbreakingly slow. First, the young lions were moved to an adjacent enclosure where they could still see and smell Willow through a sturdy mesh barrier. They spent progressively longer periods apart, though daily, supervised interaction sessions continued, a lifeline for both mother and offspring. She seems to understand, Ben observed one evening, his voice soft, as Willow calmly groomed herself after a visit with her now massive, adopted children. She knows they're growing up. Evelyn nodded, though her heart ached painfully watching the family's gradual, necessary separation. Mothers always know. It's still hard. By 18 months, Hunter and Luna had moved to the sanctuary's main lion habitat, a sprawling, 5-acre enclosure meticulously designed to mimic their natural environment, complete with elevated platforms, cooling watering holes, and enrichment features to stimulate their natural instincts. Through the reinforced fencing, they could observe the sanctuary's other lions, an elderly male named Atlas, and 2 middle-aged females, Sahara and Dakota. "Look at that!" Chloe pointed out excitedly during one of their regular observation sessions. "They're mirroring Atlas's roaring behavior." Indeed, the young lions had begun to display more species-typical behaviors, practicing their developing roars, though certain quirks remained, charming and telling, like Hunter's peculiar, bobcat-like habit of attempting to climb trees with surprising agility, or Luna's distinct preference for stalking from dense brush rather than the open grassland approaches typical of lionesses. "They're creating their own culture," Evelyn mused, watching them with a fond, knowing smile. Part lion, part bobcat, entirely, wonderfully themselves. As their second birthday approached, Evelyn and her team prepared for a truly special, incredibly nerve-wracking event. After extensive consultation with leading animal behaviorists and careful, agonizing consideration of all potential risks, they had decided to allow a supervised reunion between Willow and her grown foster children. The sanctuary had received a substantial, generous donation specifically to construct a special interaction enclosure for this purpose. Neutral territory for all parties, equipped with multiple escape routes and safety features to mitigate any potential danger. The documentary crew had, of course, returned to film the reunion, adding an extra, unwelcome layer of pressure that Evelyn could have certainly done without. "Are you absolutely sure about this, Evelyn?" Chloe asked the morning of the planned meeting, her voice tight with anxiety. "We don't know how they'll react to each other after all this time. They're adults now." Evelyn watched as Hunter paced the holding area, his magnificent mane beginning to fill out. his powerful shoulders easily 10 times the size of the small bobcat who had miraculously raised him. Luna was more composed, but her intense focus as she tracked the movement of Sanctuary staff revealed her undeniable lioness nature. "They've had visual contact regularly," Evelyn reminded her, trying to sound more confident than she felt. "And remember last month, when Willow somehow escaped her enclosure during that thunderstorm? She went straight to their habitat fence." It was true. During a violent summer storm, the aging latch on Willow's enclosure had failed, giving the bobcat an unexpected, terrifying freedom she could have easily used to disappear into the surrounding Arizona wilderness. Instead, Sanctuary security cameras had captured her making a direct, unwavering line to the lion habitat, where she sat patiently by the fence until morning staff discovered her, safe, waiting. "Let's do this," Evelyn decided, the words feeling both final and terrifying. The introduction was carefully, meticulously orchestrated. First, Willow was allowed into the interaction space alone, giving her time to investigate and, hopefully, mark the area as safe, non-threatening. Then, one at a time, Hunter and Luna were permitted to enter through a separate gate. Evelyn, Ben, Chloe, and 2 additional experienced keepers stood at strategic points around the enclosure perimeter. Tranquilizer guns reluctantly held, a last resort. The documentary crew filmed from elevated blinds, their presence minimized to avoid disturbing the delicate, emotional moment. Hunter entered first, his powerful frame moving with the casual, almost arrogant confidence of youth. He paused just inside the gate, his nose lifted high as he caught Willow's scent, a scent deeply ingrained in his earliest memories. The bobcat, barely visible for a heart-stopping moment in the artificial rocky outcropping at the center of the space, remained utterly still, watching, waiting. For a long, agonizing moment, Hunter lowered his head in a posture that could precede either deep affection or, terrifyingly, aggression. Evelyn tightened her grip on the tranquilizer gun, her knuckles white. Then, with a rumbling sound that was neither quite a purr nor a growl, a unique vocalization born of their strange bond, Hunter approached the rocks. Willow emerged, her compact form emphasizing just how massive, how powerful her foster son had become. She showed no fear, no hesitation, as the lion lowered his massive head to her level. What happened next brought tears to every watching eye, a collective gasp of disbelief and profound emotion. Hunter gently, so incredibly gently, rubbed his burgeoning mane against Willow's face, a classic feline greeting, a clear acknowledgement of their deep, unbreakable connection. The bobcat reached up and licked his muzzle once, a motherly, instinctive gesture, despite the dramatic, unbelievable role reversal their sizes now dictated. "My God," Ben whispered, his voice thick with emotion. When Luna joined the moments later, the reunion became even more remarkable, even more astonishing. The young lioness immediately laid down beside Willow, rolling to expose her belly in a clear, unmistakable display of trust, typically reserved only for the most intimate, trusted pride members. Willow moved calmly between her 2 grown foster children, exchanging scents, rubbing against them, definitively re-establishing their bond. For nearly an hour, the utterly unlikely family reacquainted themselves. They rested together, groomed one another, and even engaged in gentle, careful play that somehow miraculously accommodated their vast, unbelievable size differences. Willow seemed to remember which games had worked when they were tiny cubs, while Hunter and Luna appeared to instinctively understand their own immense strength, restraining themselves, moving with impossible gentleness around their much, much smaller foster mother. "I never, ever would have believed it," Dr. Alan Kim said softly, his voice filled with awe. He had returned specifically to witness the reunion and stood beside Evelyn at the main observation point, both wiping away tears. Their bond has transcended everything: species, separation, time. "Family finds a way, Alan," Evelyn replied, watching as Hunter stretched out protectively beside the bobcat who had saved his life, the bobcat who was his mother. "It always does." The sanctuary immediately incorporated regular family visits into their animal management plan after the successful reunion. Every few weeks, Willow would spend supervised time with Hunter and Luna in the interaction enclosure. These sessions quickly became incredibly popular attractions for sanctuary visitors, though Evelyn insisted on limiting audience sizes strictly to prevent stressing the animals. As fall turned the Arizona landscape golden and painted the mountains in breathtaking hues, Evelyn found herself reflecting on the incredible journey of the past 2 years. She sat on the observation deck, watching Hunter and Luna lounging in the late afternoon sun on their favorite elevated platform. Peaceful, content. "Penny for your thoughts?" Ben said, joining her with 2 steaming cups of coffee, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "Just thinking about miracles," she replied, accepting the mug gratefully, the warmth seeping into her hands, easing the exhaustion in her bones. 2 years ago, those cubs were dying. Now look at them. "Thanks to you, Evelyn," Ben said simply. Evelyn shook her head. "Thanks to Willow. She was the real hero." "Speaking of our hero," Ben said, a smile playing on his lips, "the board reviewed your proposal this morning." Evelyn straightened suddenly, instantly alert, her heart leaping. "And?" "Approved, unanimously," he said, the relief evident in his voice. "Construction on the retirement habitat starts next month." A massive weight lifted from Evelyn's shoulders, a burden she hadn't realized how heavily she carried. The special enclosure would allow Willow to live out her remaining years in comfort, peace, and security, while still maintaining regular, cherished contact with her unusual, beloved family. The bobcat was approaching 10 years old now, senior for her species, especially one who had survived significant trauma. "That's the best news, Ben," Evelyn said, her voice thick with emotion, the tears threatening to spill over again. "She deserves it, every bit of it." "The documentary premieres next week," Ben reminded her, pulling out his phone. Early reviews are calling it a game changer for conservation education. The film, tentatively titled Unlikely Family, the bobcat who adopted lions, had evolved from a simple nature documentary into a profound, moving meditation on adaptation, compassion, and the true, expansive meaning of family. Advanced screenings had already generated substantial, much-needed donations for the sanctuary and raised critical awareness about the devastating realities of wildlife trafficking. "I hope it helps people understand," Evelyn said, watching as Hunter playfully batted at an enrichment toy, a giant, durable ball. "Animals aren't so different from us, Ben. They love. They adapt. They form bonds that truly defy explanation." Ben followed her gaze to where the 2 young lions now lay side by side, their synchronized breathing highlighting the deep, undeniable sibling bond they shared. A bond forged in shared vulnerability and Willow's fierce love. The public loves a happy ending. Is it an ending, though? Evelyn mused softly, the setting sun casting long shadows across the enclosure. Or just the beginning of a new chapter? Indeed, as winter approached, bringing cooler, crisp temperatures to the Arizona highlands, new possibilities, new chapters, began to emerge. Hunter began showing interest in Dakota, one of the sanctuary's adult lionesses, his instincts guiding him towards his own kind. Luna had developed a surprising, gentle friendship with Atlas, the elderly male, often bringing him portions of her enrichment treats, sharing her treasures. Willow, meanwhile, had taken a tender interest in a recently rescued bobcat kitten, orphaned by a devastating forest fire. While direct fostering wasn't possible due to strict health protocols and the kitten's fragility, the staff had arranged for adjacent enclosures during the kitten's quarantine period, allowing the motherly bobcat to offer comforting presence. Welcome. Life finds a way to continue, Evelyn told a group of senior visitors during one of her weekly educational talks, her voice filled with warmth and wisdom. The tour group, residents from a nearby retirement community, watched in awe as Hunter demonstrated his impressive roar, now fully developed into the thunderous sound that defined his species, a sound that shook the air. Even in our golden years, she continued, with a knowing, gentle smile directed at her contemporaries in the audience, we can forge new connections, find new purpose. Willow taught us that age and difference don't have to be barriers to forming family. Martha Williams, an 82-year-old visitor who had become a regular, devoted presence at these sessions, nodded approvingly, her eyes shining with understanding. Just like my granddaughter and her adopted children, different as can be, but family all the same. Exactly, Evelyn agreed, her gaze drifting towards the lion habitat. The most beautiful families are often the ones we choose. That evening, as the sanctuary quieted and the first brilliant stars emerged in the clear, vast desert sky, Evelyn made her final rounds, a ritual of peace. She paused at each enclosure, first checking on the tiny bobcat kitten, then visiting Willow in her temporary habitat while her permanent retirement space was being constructed, built with love and gratitude. You changed everything, you know, she told the bobcat, who blinked slowly at her from a comfortable perch, her eyes reflecting the faint moonlight. Not just for those cubs, Willow, but for all of us. Her final stop was the lion habitat, where Hunter and Luna had settled for the night on their favorite elevated platform. The brother and sister, different in so many ways, physically and behaviorally, but united forever by their unusual, extraordinary upbringing, acknowledged her presence with the calm confidence of cats who knew, deep down, that they were home, knew they were loved. As Evelyn turned to leave, Hunter's deep, rumbling purr carried through the cool evening air, a sound impossible for humans to replicate, but utterly unmistakable in its meaning. Contentment, belonging, peace. Good night, family, Evelyn whispered, a deep, profound sense of peace settling over her own heart. She made her way back toward the welcoming lights of the sanctuary center, her heart full with the quiet, certain knowledge that sometimes, just sometimes, the most beautiful bonds are the ones that utterly, wonderfully, defy all expectation. Behind her, under the vast, silent Arizona sky, the lions settled closer together, their shared, improbable history written in every movement, every breath. Their future, unusual as it might be, was secure in the sanctuary that had become, truly, their home. This incredible story of Willow, Hunter, and Luna teaches us a profound and heartwarming lesson. That compassion knows no bounds, and family can be found in the most unexpected places. Love, courage, and connection can overcome the greatest of differences. What did you think of this astonishing journey? Please share your thoughts and feelings in the comments section below. If this video touched your heart, please take a moment to rate it out of 10. And most importantly, If you want to keep seeing inspiring stories like this, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell right now so you won't miss our next upload.